Oh yeah, that's a great idea.
Andy too.
Mike's on. We got 3 people watching. And
live to 3. And welcome everyone to our first episode of Dat-Mocracy Tho.
Your mic is on.
My mic is not on.
One more switcher. There we go. It's my fault.
All right. This is, as you can tell, our first episode of a brand new show. Hi people, how are we doing? Somebody just went through puberty. All right. Very happy to be here. Now you were listening to the 3 seconds ago show? That's great. Remember the good times we had? All right. Let's start again. Continuing to start. Give it up for yourselves for coming out to Dat-Mocracy Tho. Dat-Mocracy Tho. Come on. We love it. It's our form of government. It's the worst, but it's the best. And tonight, that's what we're going to talk about. The point of this show, it's coming together to get Coloradans involved and aware about what's happening in our very own capital. So, thanks for being here, everybody. We appreciate it. Can you give it up for the crew for managing this? We got a thanks for Mutiny Information Cafe, this beautiful venue, spinning stools included, and all our guests tonight. We've got news, we've got video, we've got interviews, and we also have a panel discussion tonight. So it is a comedy show, question mark. But we are going to be sensitive, not too edgy, not too snowflakey. We're going to try and find something rational, and we're going to handle the issues with sensitivity. There's one more person, though, I do have to thank, without whom this show would not be possible. He donated pretty much all of the money that we needed to set this thing up. So, and he wanted to come out and say hello. So if everyone could please welcome our producer, Mr. Trent Gunk.
I'd like to be introduced as Tad Pizzazz, please. Tad Pizzazz.
Oh, all right. Pardon me, folks. Same producer, but everyone please give it up for Tad Pizzazz.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much. Give it up for my Hebrew Jumanji friend, Daniel Reskin. That was a film by your people, Jumanji, Daniel.
Not about Judaism.
Not related to the Jews? Hey, we're all learning, okay? If you're having trouble with that, we're all going to have fun tonight, okay? You think to yourself, this is going to be a racy, crazy show, and you're half right. It's going to be crazy. We're going to take care of you. We're going to have a good time. I started this show recently. You guys don't know this. I wrote a $25,000 check. And I said, give me Daniel Reskin, the best goddamn bookstore in the world. We'll go out and make some agents change. Does that sound pretty good? Does that sound nice? Yeah. Thank you so much. I recently became woke, and I had a woke moment right here in Denver, Colorado, about the topic we're discussing tonight. But before I get into that, I'm going to give you some context about who I am. Tad Pizzazz Productions. I live in an 8,000 square foot home in Highlands Ranch. I drive a pink Hummer. My favorite television show is Ashton Kutcher's The Ranch on Netflix. We have a 30-day free membership trial. My wife, Bernanda, has an alarm set, so on day 29 we can cancel. We don't have to pay for the second month. I'm the kind of guy that laminates my Sports Illustrated swimsuit issues to give the women the respect they deserve, okay? I wear wild socks, okay? This is what you're dealing with, okay? I've seen Kings of Leon 12 times. I'm in a Wyclef Jean cover band called Who Clef at my sub shop in Littleton. It's called Johnny Jim's. What's the difference between us and Jimmy John's? No free smells. If you smell my product before you get to the register, you're going to be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. It says on the wall, pay attention. Here's the deal, okay? I realized recently as I was in Denver, Colorado recently, I'm an AOL Hotmail MySpace guy in a Elon Musk shoot my car to Mars in a rocket ship world, okay? And I was out New Year's Eve with my wife, Bernanda, at one of the steakhouses. I won't mention which one. STK, $85 marble bone and ribeye, beautiful piece of meat. And after the show, she said, or after the dinner, she says, hey, she likes to go get coffee and pie at a family restaurant. I said, great, that's what we always do. She sees a sign for Decadence at the Colorado Convention Center. She says, that sounds nice. We walk in there, apparently that's not a family restaurant. We walk in, an electronic Mickey Mouse is Yaz Queen in the beats to all the kids. Scotty gives me some wacky champagne. Cut to 4 a.m. Officer Gomez is tapping on my skull. You can't sleep here. 6 set apart. Okay? Me and Bernan's apparently went a little hog wild. Scotty dosed our Molly. We wake up in the park. We're in the slammer, y'all. Tad Pizzazz behind bars. Highlands Ranch to the Denver County. Okay? And I had this moment as I was sitting there, I'm thinking to myself, if they can throw Tad Pizzazz in the jammer, okay, what else am I missing? What else have I been screwing up with? So we're all learning, okay? Daniel's going to help us learn tonight. Our panelists and interviews are going to help us learn tonight. We're all learning. It's Tad Pizzazz. Give it up for Daniel. He's going to tell you about some Colorado legislative matters. Thank you for coming tonight.
He paid for everything.
Tad Pizzazz. Johnny Jim.
We have to let him do that. Thank you, Phil. You know, representing all voices and all views, we welcome the recently woke and those with more woking up to do. So, thank you for joining us, everybody. Now, topical news monologue. I think so. So basically, the Colorado General Assembly is back in session. So what does that mean? It's another name for the Colorado Legislature, and it has a House of Representatives and a Senate, just like in D.C. This year's session began January 10th and runs until May 9th, which is 5 months. So they work for about 5 months a year, which is like half a teacher or my musician dad. As mentioned, we have a bicameral legislature. You know, bicameral, you know, like hearts or clams and things. Of course, bicameral means 2 houses, which is something as a millennial I will never own. Apparently, I enjoy $14 avocado toast and not buying blood diamonds. That's what we're about. If I ever get married, we're going to do the right thing and get organic, fair trade, glow-in-the-dark tattoos of Calvin and Hobbes, like any self-respecting adult born from 1983 to 2000. And in tribute to our legislature, that's the end of that joke. We only decided to write for 5/12 of the week in tribute to them. Most of that was arguing over pizza toppings. So we're kind of working on getting reelected for a second episode. So then we'll get back to the issue. Well, now we will turn to our monthly topic, homelessness. Tomorrow, there'll be a vote on the Right to Rest bill, which was defeated last year. The bill, apparently it wasn't.
It's being delayed.
It's not being voted on tomorrow?
No. Delayed.
Current events, everyone. Well, we're still going to talk about it because it's getting voted on soon. Thank you for the fact checking. We have full crowd of fact checkers here. All of you are employed right now. But what the Right to Rest bill does, it provides basic protections for those with no place to go. So now, to shed some light on the bill, please welcome from the ACLU of Colorado, Mr. John Krieger. Thanks for being here tonight. Here's some last-minute guest shuffling. You came in and saved the day.
Well, anytime you can follow up Tad Pizzazz.
Big shoes to fill.
Tad Pizzazz!
Big, gaudy shoes to fill. That's right. But yeah, so you are the director of communications for the ACLU of Colorado.
Yes.
Correct. Tell us about basically what that entails.
The ACLU of Colorado, we're the nation's oldest defender of civil rights and civil liberties here in Colorado. We're the state's oldest defender of civil rights and civil liberties. We've been doing it for more than 100 years on the national level and more than 60 years here in Colorado. We do it in 3 main ways: through the courts. We are like an active law firm with cases and clients. And then we do it through legislation at the Capitol, where we track or take on sometimes more than 100 bills each legislative session that impact your rights. And then we also do it through education, which is kind of what I'm here to do tonight. It's education.
On the Capitol, are you lobbying for bills? Are you sponsoring bills? What kind of actual role do you have there in the legislature?
Yeah, so like I said, each legislative session there are at least 100 bills that have an impact on your rights. It's one of the reasons why we have a sign in our office that says nobody's rights are ever safe when the legislature is in session. That can be a lot of times bad bills that we are working to oppose or defeat, and then often sometimes some good bills too that we are trying to push forward to extend your rights and liberties. And in fact, Even in a split legislature in the last 2-3 years, one of the places where Colorado has really been on the forefront and moving forward is in the area of civil rights and civil liberties, where we've actually had bipartisan support for some really big, awesome bills. Unfortunately, one of those bills that has not had that kind of support yet is the Right to Rest Act.
Right, which is what we're here to talk about. How does it look for the right to rest?
Well, what's interesting about the Right to Rest Act is we're libertarians, civil libertarians, and when you think about it, the Right to Rest Act, which does the very simple thing, which tells people that they have the right to exist in public spaces without government interference, is a pretty libertarian idea. I mean, what could be more big government than the government that tells you where you can or can't sleep, or the government that says you can't sleep in your own legally parked car, or you can't share food, or you can't go or be in that park. This is big government, scary sci-fi stuff, which is actually one of the reasons why in the first year that the Right to Rest Act was introduced, Gordon Klingenschmidt, who some folks know to be the wackiest of the right, and actually is no longer in the legislature because he was the wackiest of the right, actually voted for the Right to Rest Act under that same idea that there's nothing more big government than the government that tells you where you can and can't be and where you can and can't exist, the government that criminalizes your existence, which is unfortunately a government that we have in Colorado too often.
Wow. So why did this bill not pass last year?
Well, like I said, it has not to date gained a lot of bipartisan support, but it's really been, in a lot of cases, Democrats that have voted the bill down. And to be perfectly honest, there's a lot of influence and a lot of the business community and a lot of the cities who have lobbied and spent money lobbying, in some cases tens of thousands of dollars, paying outside lobbyists to go into the legislature to lobby against this bill and to keep their current status quo, which allows them to criminalize existence. So there's a lot of influence on that side.
Right. Is it just big business that's the competitor? I mean, who is really trying to...
A big business, and then also the cities. Cities like here in Denver, Boulder, Fort Collins, Colorado Springs, they send lobbyists to these hearings. They go work this bill and work it to kill it because they want to continue to do what they do. And just to give an example of why this bill is so important, why this bill is so necessary, the ACLU had a case about 5 years ago, which is called Boulder versus Madison. In that case, our client went to a shelter one night, and the shelter was full. And it was a night not too different from tonight. It was, the temperature was in the teens or less, and he had nowhere to go. And we all know that as human beings have to do some things. They need to sleep, they need to eat, they need to go to the bathroom. And that night he needed to sleep. So he went to a park, he covered himself with a sleeping bag. And because Boulder and Denver and Fort Collins and most of the cities in Colorado have a thing called the urban camping ban, which makes it a crime to sleep outside the shelter, he got a ticket. And that night, he was a criminal. If he had not had the sleeping bag over top of him, he might have died, but he wouldn't have committed a crime. The sleeping bag made him a criminal. We took his case, we appealed his conviction on the camping ban, and we lost that case in the appellate court, and the Colorado Supreme Court refused to hear it. So that's still the law in Colorado in so many places, and that's why we need a Right to Rest Act.
Wow, but with the sleeping bag, I mean, the line is so fine, right? Risk death, or, I mean, so criminalizing this, just quickly as we finish up, I mean, is there anything about the bill that's different this year that gives it more hope to pass, or?
Well, I'm excited that you all will hear from Terese Howard from Denver Homeless Out Loud. And Denver Homeless Out Loud gets so much credit. One of the things that we have that's amazing in Colorado is an activist class of people who are homeless and people who are working together across the state to not only push this bill, but also to even help to write it and to help make it law. And so I'm really excited that you'll hear from Terese later. I mean, the very simple pieces of this bill is just that it does what we all should have a right to do, which is to exist in public spaces, to sleep in your own legally parked car, to share food. There's a lot of things that people say it does that it doesn't do, and Terese could talk through some of those things. It's a simple concept, and I encourage everyone here to get involved, to contact your legislators, because as I said before, there's a lot of influence being pushed, and the only way to push back on influence, the only way that we're able to be successful at the legislature is if they hear from you.
All right. Well, thanks for being here very much. John Krieger from the ACLU, everybody. Thank you so much. All right. And now I believe we have a special video presentation.
Yes, my camera one's going to be long.
Hey everybody, I'm Jay Gillespie.
I'm Elise Kerns.
And we're here at the Denver State Capitol talking about the Right to Rest Act in song form. Boop bop beep bop, where do we sleep? Where do we sleep now? Where do we sleep? I'm like boop bop beep bop, where do we sleep? Where do we sleep? Where do we sleep? Well, right now it's illegal in Denver to sleep on the streets. You know, for right or wrong, you know, I'm not really taking a stand on it. But next week they're voting to repeal that. And so kind of what we're asking is if the homeless can't sleep on the street, we kind of don't know where people think they should sleep. And so we're wondering, we just got a little question, and that little question is, boop bop beep bop boop beep beep beep, where should we sleep? And we're wondering, do you have any ideas where the homeless should be resting right now while it's illegal?
While it's illegal?
While it's illegal, where should the homeless be going to sleep?
I have no idea because homeless shelters are terrible.
Yes.
The streets are dirty.
Yeah.
And they're being swept away by the cops.
That's exactly the problem.
I have no idea where they would go.
They're not offering a solution. They're just giving us more questions. Makes me want to say one thing. Boop bop beep bop. Where do we sleep? Where do we sleep? Where do we sleep? Boop bop beep bop. Where do we sleep? So where are we gonna sleep tonight?
So I'm in favor of right to rest because I think it's unfortunate that we have folks who are homeless and laying on the streets. And while the city is doing really great work, I think to try to figure out ways to decrease homelessness, one of the concerns is that folks are potentially being criminalized for being homeless. So we have to figure out a way where we continue to have shelters for folks. Those shelters can't just be shelters, they have to be safe, they have to be clean. So these are things that I'm supportive of this bill, figuring out a way to make sure that we continue to provide options for homeless folks, but at the same time, don't make it more difficult for them than it already is for them to be able to get back on their feet. So that's why I support the bill.
I feel emotional.
Come on, bring it in.
Thank you.
Yeah, you got it.
Boop bop beep bop beep bop beep bop beep. Boop bop beep bop beep. Boop bop beep bop beep bop bop. Where should we sleep? Under a bridge? No, that's illegal. On the stairs? Double illegal. On the sidewalk? Triple illegal. In a park? Quadruple illegal. On the street? Quintuple illegal. They're giving you 0 options, 0 places. So I'm saying, where do you sleep? Boop bop beep bop boop bop beep bop. Where should you sleep then? Boop bop beep beep bop. Where should we sleep? No one knows. That's the point we're trying to make.
Okay. We're going to get our panel going here, and I'd like to welcome the owner of Mutiny. This place is one of the peak owners, and local activist and superstar. Give it for Jim Norris. And next to him, he is future candidate for mayor, although we're not here to talk about that. Business owner, entrepreneur, and activist as well, everyone. Kayvan Khalatbari. And then finally, representing Homeless Out Loud. Denver Homeless Out Loud, pardon. Terese Howard, everybody. Thank you all for being here. Appreciate it. We're gonna get to the bottom of this, probably not, but we're gonna have a discussion, further discussion. We'll start with Jim. You own Mutiny. You are a business owner. You deal with all kinds of people, and among them, people who are homeless. How has that changed your views and shaped your feelings on it?
Well, I've come a long way to be where I'm at here. Prior to 20 years ago, I lived in cars. I've hopped trains. I'm familiar with that culture, but I've never. When I lived in my car, it was kind of a choice. You know? So it was never like a necessity for me. So we're doing business that ran clubs on Colfax for 10 years, so I got to know the Colfax people really well and dealing with that kind of population.
That's like a hot area, very.
Always has been, you know, and that was part of the flavor of Colfax was, you know, the people that you ran into there. You know, but when you're just working and living there, it's different. So coming down here and owning businesses, you know, I've seen, you know, two different kinds of the homeless people. What I deal with down here mainly is addiction and alcoholism. You know, there's no services, so the people that I have to deal with down here are at a different level. They're more, you know, combative. You know, we do things. We do a lot of fundraisers, you guys know, to, you know, raise money and awareness and work with you know, homeless groups.
When you say no services down here, what do you mean?
Well, I mean, like, there's no shelters within, you know, how many, I mean,
they're all downtown? Or?
Right, in different areas, you know, so.
Sure.
You know, the people that are trying to get help, I believe they're trying to get help. We need to offer more help to them, but, you know, the resources are there. The people that I deal with down here on a regular basis are mainly people that live in the area and have lived in the area for a long time and come down and panhandle and get drunk and break windows. You know, what we're dealing with is how do we deal with the balance between being compassionate to other people we're dealing with that are sleeping on the streets and, you know, trying to do business, you know, on a level where, you know, we do things to help a lot of nonprofits. So right now, I know Matt and I, or, you know, Erica and other people are really in kind of a quandary on how, you know, without help from the city or any kind of guidance on how we can, you know, really help people.
Let's move on, and just to get everyone involved in the panel, Dr. Terese, if you could just want to know a little more, I'd love to learn about the organization you're with and your role and experiences with it.
Yeah, so I'm an organizer with Denver Homeless Out Loud. We are a advocacy and organizing group that fights for our rights and needs on the streets. The large majority of Denver Homeless Out Loud is people who are either currently or formerly homeless. I am not in that situation, but the large majority of our organization is, and that is our priority, is to ensure that the decisions that we're making and the decisions that we are pushing for the policymakers to make are ones that are driven by the voices and the priorities of folks with their experience of homelessness and folks who are on the streets. I could talk for about 20 hours about all the work we're doing because we do way too much. We kind of don't have boundaries. It's not one of our weaknesses. But in essence, our work is really focused on decriminalizing our survival in public, on creating new, actually attainable housing options, such as tiny homes and other types of models, and on changing the understanding of the root causes of homelessness and the real solution, which is, you know, based in our systemic issues in our economy and our housing market, not an individual's problem. So those are, you know, kind of the big focus of our work.
What are some of the root causes?
Root cause of homelessness, lack of a home. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about not having a home. That's what homelessness is about, is having a home. Now, what home means, you know, is a real conversation that we need to have. It's not just 4 walls and a roof. You know, there's a lot more that needs to be talked about. We had a fair degree of housing and a fairly minimal homeless population back in the 60s, 70s, 50s here in the U.S. And in the early 80s, the budget in the federal level for low-income housing was slashed down to almost nothing, a 77% reduction within a 3-year period. We have gotten to a point right now in our society where housing is not attainable for anyone who is, you know, a low or no income person.
Right. So jumping off that, I know you, Kayvan, been involved in the tiny home project that recently, or not even recently. It's been. You can't even say that anymore.
7 months.
It's in the bag. But yeah, I'd love to hear some about how you got involved with that.
Well, the gentleman from the ACLU mentioned the businesses. One of the reasons I got involved in this, obviously, wanted to do something good, but I was just providing pizza to various meetings for Denver.
It's a great first step.
Once I got there, I first met Terese and a lot of others through this group called Alternative Solutions Advocacy Project. And this is a very broad coalition of faith-based organizations, nonprofits, ACLU, University of Denver, concerned residents, a very wide swath of folks were involved in this to one, repeal the urban camping ban, and two, to look at more compassionate and dignified policies around homelessness, to look at the root causes, which, you know, outside of not having housing, obviously, some people have barriers to housing that are put on us by criminalizing public health issues around drugs and sex work and homelessness. That makes it tough to find a job. That makes it very difficult to find housing, to get financial aid, to be the, you know, the person that we all want to be. But to say that businesses are opposed to this is actually one of the reasons I got into this. They're not opposed. The businesses that they're talking about that are in lockstep with the mayor in wanting to criminalize homelessness are the Chamber of Commerce or the Downtown Denver Partnership. I know probably 200 business owners in Denver or more. I don't know a single one of them is a member of those organizations.
Probably Ink Coffee though, right?
Yeah, Ink Coffee. So, I have very recently put together a coalition of about 150 businesses that were in support of social use cannabis in 2016 when we passed I-300. Mutiny was one of them. My companies were as well. And they wanted to use that same approach to build support amongst the business community for this issue as well. And we ended up getting about 125, 150 organizations to team up with these faith-based organizations and nonprofits to try to push back. Eventually, there's a whole slew of things that led to direct action. We had the deal in front of City Council building where generally when they do these sweeps downtown, they would move everybody, make them go across the street, they'd clean it up, they'd let everybody go back. They stopped doing this one night when it was particularly cold in November in 2016. And everybody was fed up. You have 7,000 homeless people in the metro area, a lot of whom stay downtown. And when they couldn't go back to this place where they all really were in safe in numbers downtown, they dispersed to neighborhoods. And a group of folks, Terese included, and a lot of other folks that are really leading this for D-Hole and others, went down in front of the mayor's office and decided to camp out. And that was my first time witnessing the egregious waste of resources that we as a city spend on criminalizing homelessness. We had no less than 13 cops there for 3 hours to issue 3 citations. Terese got one of them. And
I think we may have some video to play in the background at some point of when you slept on the streets and caught all these sweeps.
And this was just filming. We went out and really we're pushing the topic. I took a Facebook Live of this thing, and people were outraged. You see this veteran, Jerry Burton was his name, laying on the ground, blankets covered. The first blanket they pull up, it says, I think it's a Marines or something, a veteran blanket. Made it very clear. We had all these cops taking it, folding it up, and putting it into an evidence bag because these blankets were evidence of a crime.
Wow.
And took them. That video ended up getting a lot of traction. I think about
I don't think we need
tens of millions of views. And eventually prompted the ACLU to write a letter to the mayor's office saying, what the hell are you folks doing? And so the mayor comes out with this weak-ass statement that talks about them not confiscating this anymore. They're simply going to take pictures of this gear as evidence of that crime. And for the record, there were emails that were sent to the mayor's office after that asked why the hell this was going on, and I have my core of them. The mayor's office responded that this is the only time this has ever happened, and they did it because people were protesting in front of the city-county building. We all know that's bullshit, and this action happens to this day. There's actually a dumpster down by Coors Field where you can see sleeping bags and tents littered any day of the week that Public Works has confiscated. But ultimately, it was that broad coalition. It was getting this kind of stuff out into the news and into the public, the constant pressure that groups like D-Hole and others put on this topic that ultimately led to us getting the beloved community village down at 38th and Blake Street. And there's all sorts of things that go around with that.
Was that a battle?
Yeah, it still is a battle. I mean,
they want to get rid of it?
I think if the mayor had his way and if it wasn't such a hot topic and if people didn't love it so much, and they really do love these tiny house villages, that he would not allow them, no doubt, especially in an area like that, which is one of the more up-and-coming places in Denver. But we hopefully, and Terese goes to these meetings every day, this Alternative Solutions Advocacy Project, we're always looking for more folks to be a part of this. We have hopefully at least one more, but hopefully 2 more villages that are going to be stood up this year. The next one.
Oh yeah, in the Denver area, you're gonna have a cool.
The second one's going to be at St. Andrew's Church, which is at Glenarm in 20.
What a churchly thing to do. That's amazing. More churches should probably think about that.
And the cool thing about the first village was that it was meant to shine a light on why people can't use shelters, right? 70 out of 100 people recently on a 9 News Undercover said they would rather sleep outside in freezing temperatures than go inside these shelters, which are dangerous, which are filled with disease, which are just very unhealthy places to be. And we wanted to let folks know that, you know, folks are there for PTSD. They can't go in because of PTSD, and they can't sleep on a floor with a bunch of folks. They're there because they work nights and don't have access to them during the day. Couples and families that get split up because men and women can't use shelters. Transgender people who don't feel comfortable or safe or aren't allowed in certain facilities. So there's a lot of reasons for that, and the tiny house community was really meant to shine a light on that. So the next one's going to focus on transgender individuals and women in general. You know, because when we go back to what are the reasons people are homeless, there are a ton of reasons, and there's a ton of reasons why people really stay there and can't get back up. And I think until we understand the difficulty of these issues, it's going to be very hard to resolve this issue. I agree with Terese, housing first, no doubt, but we need to accompany that with services that are really providing support towards what people are dealing with, which is a very, very mixed bag of things.
And now let's talk a little bit about this right to rest. From what I understand, it's basic protections, not being hassled where you are, being allowed to have basic possessions. What's so controversial about this bill?
I think it's controversial because it's about public space. It's about treating people who are homeless as humans in public space, that requires cities to end the practice of sweeping homelessness away. That's been their response for a good deal of time now recently. It hasn't always been their response. It's that practice of criminalizing and sweeping away homelessness has really escalated in the past 10 years, especially as homelessness has skyrocketed. But this bill says you can't do that. You can't sweep homelessness under the rug. You have to actually give people the right to survive, and not try to hide people. And that's not the approach that cities want to take. Cities want to use police, not health and safety issues. They call it a health and safety issue. They try to say, oh, it's not healthy and safe for people to sleep outside. It's not healthy and safe for people to be swept off to Commerce City, where you're miles away from the food sources that you have. It's not healthy and safe for people to be separated from their communities who keep you safe when you're staying together with a crew that looks after you, your stuff, and helps make sure that food's provided, and so on and so forth. It's not healthy and safe to have your belongings taken from you in the middle of the night, and not have proper survival gear, so on and so on and so forth. So this is really a bill about health and safety, but the controversial nature that they will use to say this is about health and safety is actually the opposite of the framing that you'll hear from the cities and folks who are trying to oppose it.
And Terese, this is statewide, and it's not just Denver that criminalizes homelessness. I remember seeing a D-Hole newsletter recently that had the number of ordinances that exist in Colorado that criminalize homelessness. How many is it?
351 within 76 cities. So we didn't do every city in Colorado, but 76 cities in Colorado have 351 laws that criminalize acts of survival in public space.
Damn. Can you speak a little bit more about nationally?
The California has more anti-homeless ordinances than Colorado, but they also have more cities, so it's kind of hard to do a full straight comparison. But you can look at national reports. There's a report put out by the National Law Center on Homelessness and Poverty called No Safe Place that shows the escalation of these laws. Some striking things with that. There's been a massive escalation in the last 10 years. For example, there's a 110% increase of cities passing anti-car sweeping laws. Of all of the laws, one of the most egregious laws you wouldn't think is actually escalating. And comparatively to other states, There's a couple states that have passed Homeless Bill of Rights that are great legislation, but none of them really go to the bottom line of saying you cannot have these laws that criminalize surviving in public. They make good steps in that direction, but they don't have the sort of teeth that our bill has. And our bill is the same as in California and Oregon, so we have 3 states with that same legislation. But unfortunately, I don't have like a state or a city I would point to say, oh, this place has done it. You know, there's a lot of talk about Utah. They've done a lot of great things. They haven't actually ended homelessness, but they have provided a lot of housing.
So Denver's going to have to step up.
It can. Yeah.
I think that's kind of what we like to call ourselves, a progressive city, a world-class city. We're certainly far from that, but I think I personally see a little bit of hope on this topic. Because we do want to set the example. I think we've done it on a lot of other things. I think we have the opportunity to do it here. And this is not a Colorado-centric or Denver-centric issue. Homelessness is on the increase all across the country. And it's important to remember that these folks, and Jim's discussed some issues that folks have with, there's aggressive folks, there's people that are dealing with substance abuse, and there's a lot of issues that go along with that. We just had our largest inpatient facility for substance abuse shut down, Arapahoe House, here at the start of the year. So there's a lot that's going in the wrong direction, unfortunately. But it's important for folks to remember that have a fear or a stigma with people experiencing homelessness, to remember that over half of these folks that live on the streets of Denver have jobs. We're dealing in a city that has more than half of the folks that rent are paying more than a third of their income on housing. They're rent burdened. We've seen housing costs rise 2x in Denver in a very short amount of time. There are so many people that are a moment away from being in the same position, whether it's a health moment without insurance, losing a family member, losing a job, and we need to be considerate of that. And it's amazing how quickly your walls come down about who these folks are and really how hard they're working to get back on their feet, but coming against so many barriers. And when you criminalize something again, having that on your record creates such a stigma and really shames folks, unfortunately, into spiraling further down because they can't get the basic necessities that folks need.
Because everything seems so big and almost like impossible boulders, but I love these small creative solutions, the lockers for public storage, the tiny homes, they're a little bigger obviously, but what are some more kinds of more attainable, we don't have to wait around for people to pass laws, kinds of things we can do to support people going through homelessness?
Well, I don't know. I've been in the service business, most of my adult life, and everyone I've worked with, everyone's, like you said, a medical emergency away, or, sometimes it's just a slip up. I have addiction problems, and a lot of my friends also do, So sometimes, you can make a mistake for a couple of weeks, and then you're thrown in the system, and it takes you years to come out of it. And when you criminalize, simple things as survival, we're talking about criminalizing the right to survive. It's horrible. So what we've done, like with the service industry groups, we try to take care of each other. You put together 2 or 3 or 4 jobs. Quick changes are hard on this one. But I think that Denver is unique in that we do have the space. We have room to move. We have lots of places that we can put these things. Put these, the tiny villages and affordable housing that shouldn't have a stigma to it. Affordable housing is a right. It's easy. When I came to Denver 25 years ago, I paid $200 a month rent to live in a little garage up on what's now called Uptown. Back then there was a lot of gangs and stuff. So the people that are coming here that are really trying hard, working 3 and 4 jobs and still can't make it. The working homeless.
And I think there's a lot that we can do just as activists and advocates on this topic. And if nobody is pissed off about it and yelling and getting mad about something, nothing's ever going to happen. Right. The politicians don't move unless people are offended by something, especially collectively. That's why something like that video getting out and having not just the group that was there as being part of this kind of, I don't want to call it a protest because it wasn't. There were actually folks surviving that night. It took that to get even the attention on this issue for a day or two, and that quickly subsided, unfortunately. But there's a lot of ways that people can help out. The businesses, especially, I love the locker ideas. D-Hole brought that to us a few months ago, and we're still dealing with the city to get those approved. Actually, we had some shit neighbor across the street complain about them, so we're going through some permitting process, but it's not set back enough from the property line and whatever. So we're going to get through that, but we need additional businesses as we really clarify this process to do this, because again, more than half these folks have jobs, and where they put their shit during the day. There's a lot of ways that people, I think, more than anything, can shine light on this and continue to be frustrated by it. I think it's incumbent on all of us to understand that getting loud and what they said earlier with emailing or calling these reps, but also our city council people and our mayor, letting them know that you're very upset with this, I think is a damn good start, because there's people that are actively working very hard on this every day in a lot of different ways, and if they have everyday residents reaching out and agreeing with these things that we're trying to get done, that's how we're going to find progress on it. It's participation.
Yeah, they're not going to pay attention unless you make them hyper aware of it, and there's different, like you said, the different ways, and express, as politely as you can or as impolitely as you can, the outrage about, how easy this is to take care of and have the resources.
And I would just add that a couple things. One, build a relationship with folks who are on the streets, or if you are that person yourself, build relationships with others.
That's what I was going to say.
So yeah, build relationships, get to know folks. And with that, there's shared resources, mutual aid that can happen. You might be somebody that has access to enough money to help out with the transportation costs for a day, and they might be able to help out with mowing your lawn, whatever. There's mutual aid that can happen that way. And the other thing I would just say in terms of outrage is, well, two things. Sorry. One, police are not the answer. Quit calling the police. If somebody is
I agree with that completely.
The answer is not to call a cop. The answer is to get a blanket, or to help that person to get to a shelter if they need to, or to just have a relationship with somebody. The answer is not to call the cops. Two, outrage needs to happen as we build towards the hearing for the right to rest. We don't know the date. So if you go to the Denver Homeless Out Loud website or Facebook, or you go to ColoradoHomelessBillOfRights.org, many different sites, you can get updates on that because it's going to happen within a couple of weeks, and that's going to be a time when we need everybody to show up to the Capitol and just be present to make sure that they know that we're watching.
How many folks do we have at the hearing last year?
A few hundred, at least like 300.
They had to move it into a far larger room
Yeah.
to accommodate all the folks who wanted to provide testimony.
I mean, so that shows how many people are interested in it, but at that point, is it too late for those to just show up? You need to do more than that before you show up, because the decision's already been made, essentially, by the time you're there?
Yes and no. I mean, yes, it typically has, but like with this bill, if it's in the same committee as it's assigned to, the local gov committee, they already know what this bill is, and we already kind of know where they stand, and so just even that day, what they hear from folks on the streets and folks who are testifying can make a difference.
Great.
Yeah, it was unfortunate. We mentioned Democrats kind of killed this last year. One of them was Paul Rosenthal. If anybody has any flaming bags of poo, come find me afterwards, and I'll give you his home address. He came.
Politics, baby.
He brought us together in a room before and acted very concerned. This is a guy that a year prior, so 2 years ago. I don't know. Can you please tell that story? I think it's important, because the guy's not going to turn around, and he needs to be shamed. He's up for re-election and has no business.
Public shaming is hot right now. After all the NRA stuff, I'm all for publicly shaming politicians. So,
But no, Paul Rosenthal came and met with some of us down at my offices, Terese included, and seemed to be genuinely concerned about this and asked all these questions. And when he was up at the hearing on the panel, said that he had all these unanswered questions. He just didn't feel comfortable voting yes on it, and ended up voting no that day when it seemed like he might have turned himself around on the topic. But that was the second year in a row that he had thwarted this. And then I tried to give a sad sack story about how he was just so sad that it didn't pass, and really not taking any blame for his own actions, unfortunately.
The two-facedness is not what we need right now. Yeah, I think we are at our time limit for the panel. So I would really love to thank our panel guests so much. Terese Howard, Kayvan Khalatbari, Jim Norris, for taking time out of their busy schedules, making the world a better place to help you do it yourselves. So thank you for that,
so
guys.
much.
Go do some good.
Well,
It's been a hell of a ride, Daniel. We're making changes already. I
you
feel it.
feel a little more woke?
The locomotive's on the tracks.
I don't think it is, but I think we're in the station.
We're all learning, everybody.
That's right. I really want to thank everyone for being here tonight. This was a new experiment show.
It wasn't
We'll
an
do it again.
experiment. It was a rollicking success. Thank you so much.
Yeah, like he said.
We have a robotic camera.
For all our panelists tonight.
Kayvan, Terese, Jim,
Give it up for our amazing crew taking time out.
Wally, Nicole, Roger, Caroline,
Mutiny Information
Sarah.
Cafe for hosting us.
Will,
This weirdo.
Tad
Tad
Pizzazz,
Pizzazz.
Tad Pizzazz.
I'm Daniel Reskin.
Come see me in
and
Highland
most
Brandon.
importantly, you all for coming out tonight. Thank you so much. We couldn't have done this without you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for being here, everyone. Good night.
Good night. After this, go see Caroline from Common Cause if you want to get involved in anything. That's great. Thank you. Bye.
Do something after this. Hit the music.